So we're adding some lights to the show this year, a couple props. We're building 12 of these RGB pixel candy canes. So I'm just going to do a quick video on how we make them. As you can see that they're ran by pixels. They can be any color that we want them. There's 8 pixels within each of these. Each pixel in this case has 3 bulbs to it, so we can make them dance, chase up and down. It's gonna be pretty cool. These 2 completed ones we'll get out of the way. So what we're working with, we got these for cheap last fall. They're just hollow, empty candy canes. They shine light through them pretty well. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some pixel strip. I already used some of this for our leaping arches in the yard. We got these pixel strips. I know that I had fed for making them earlier that it takes 8 pixels to fill a candy cane. So these can be cut wherever we see these copper pads. You can actually see that there's a cut line on them. So we're going to count out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there's 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we just cut them at that pad, trying to leave an equal amount on either side, so then I can solder on in the future. Just this strip now, we'll have enough on here for another candy cane. Set that aside. The way pixels work is a controller. In this case, we're using a ES Pixel Stick. Sends out data to the pixels. This is set up right now to send out data for 50 pixels. And in our sequencing program, we tell each individual bulb what color to be at what point in time. So the controller will send out, it's told that we have 50 pixels hooked on. It sends out a chain of data. It hits the first pixel, that pixel takes the first bit of data and then passes the rest down the chain through the end. So it's a single flow of data. These are indicated with an arrow so that we know which way that data goes. So what we're going to do is we're going to start out by connecting up our plugs onto here, pigtails if you will. The incoming data comes onto the male end and the outgoing data goes onto the female end. What our plan is to be able to daisy chain these candy canes, so each one is going to have an incoming and an outgoing cable, so we can have data come in and feed each candy cane in line instead of having to have a controller for each candy cane. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to set the candy cane aside for now so it's out of our way, and then we're going to be soldering on our cables. We also need to get the data. So data is one way, so the end of this strip is where that data ends. We need to get this to the next, out to the next prop. So we're going to use a length of 18 gauge wire here. So I'm just going to be soldering this onto the data output end, feeding it along the back of the strip, and connecting it to head on out. So we'll get there shortly. We're going to start by doing some soldering here. Kind of fortunate that how this ends up, we've already got our pads exposed. So we have a negative data and a positive, which is in this order: blue negative, yellow data, brown positive. So I'm going to be putting this, we'll start with the male end. This is our input, so all 3 of those wires are going to get soldered on and connected. To the front side of this, we'll flip it over, we'll solder this guy to the back with the exception of the data wire. So I'm going to start by taking my soldering iron, and we're going to just tin or put a dab of solder on each of these pads, and that'll make it easier for me to add the wires on. So we'll just flip that over. Same thing on the back, just a quick dab. What we're doing is we're heating up the pad, and then when we touch the solder to the pad, it melts and the pad just kind of wicks it up. There we go. Come back to the front. These these terminals are from DIY LED Express. That's where I've got all of my Pixel stuff from. Fairly local, they're in Wisconsin, so right across the way. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take and touch the it's already got solder on the end. So we're just going to touch it on there, heat up the wire, and melt it into the solder that's on the thing, and let it go, and there we go. Same with the data. They're really close together, so we got to be careful that we don't overlap them or let them touch, because then we'll get a short, and obviously that would be bad. And then we're going to do that for the positive as well. There we go. Whoop. Having a little bit of a trouble there. I won't hold still. There we go. Melt it, let it set, and let go, and let it cool. And we're going to just flip the whole thing over, like so. And then just to help keep everything in place, we'll just grip that there, just so it's not putting too much tension on it. Now, this is our output, or outgoing cord. So we want to make sure that we're not soldering on the data connection. The reason being that that data needs to come from the end of the strip through that blue wire that we're going to put on. So we're going to skip the data connection on this one. We're still going to connect everything else up. So we're going to come in here, heat it up, solder it, and let it touch. That I'm not happy with. We're going to reflow that one. There we go. Same thing with the negative. Reflow that guy. He actually doesn't have very much solder on him, so we might add some solder to him actually. Yeah, we're going to flow a little bit more onto him. So I'm going to heat him up and then add some in there. And then we'll reflow just like that. Alright. It's going to take a look at both sides and make sure nothing looks shorted. I want to do a test quick just to make sure I didn't short anything out. So I take my multimeter. We're going to put it onto the continuity test. And how that works is if power flows through, it tones. So we should be able to hit positive to data, nothing. Positive to ground, nothing. Ground to data, nothing. Perfect. That's what we want. If we had shorted it out, we would have got a tone, and that would be bad. Now, we're going to take our length of 18 gauge wire. That's going to be our data return. We're going to get that guy all hooked up. I want to tin him. So we're just going to come in here, heat up that bad boy, and put some solder on them. There we go, flow a bunch on. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to just flow and put these two guys together. There we go. Then we want to protect that. So we're going to take a piece of a little extra of 1/8 inch heat shrink tubing. Slide that down here. Put it on the end. Slide it right over that end to protect it. And we'll just take a lighter, a little bit of heat. We'll just melt that tubing. And that'll keep us from shorting out there. Perfect. What I'm also going to do, we're just going to leave that as is. We're good. Okay. Now, I want to prevent this blue wire from wrapping and getting twisted around and covering up our pixel bulbs, our LEDs. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab some electrical tape and we're just going to wrap it between the bulbs. So we'll start right here. Got a spot here where we're between the two bulbs. We're just going to put some electrical tape over that bad boy. And there we go. Well, this is in the candy cane, you won't see it, obviously. Couple more here. All right, so that way it just kind of keeps it on the back, keeps it from getting in the way in the front. So now we have this end here with the data output. Too much stuff going on here. So we need to solder this onto the end. But I also need to be able to secure this guy. So we're going to come in here. We're just going to take a snip out of the back of the jacket so that I can pull the jacket forward. And what that's going to allow me to do later is to stretch this jacket because we're going to use it to secure the end of the strip in the top of the candy cane. I'm going to just get it out of the way to start, and we're going to take our helping hand again. So now the data output on this is the middle one, and we're not going to be using the power ones on this side, so we just don't need them up here. So just like before, we're going to take and we're going to flow some solder onto that pad. There we go. Just quick and easy. But now we need to take this and we need to solder our wire on. So we're going to take it like so. Strip some wire off. Now I want to heat this up and I want to tin the tip of that just like I did everything else. Just hold it up. That's a lot of copper there, so it's going to take a minute. There it goes. Put a bunch of solder on there. Try not to breathe in the smoke. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to flow that right on there. Right in the middle. Just like that. Heat it up, flow it in. There. And then it's on there, I can take and snip the excess off. We don't obviously need that much sticking out. There we go. That's the hard part. Make sure that's cool so it doesn't. There we go. So we'll stick this on. Now we're going to do a test. So if I just coil it up there so we get it all in the frame. My output of my controller to my input. Boom. So there we have our pixels. Get some darkness here. They're all shining. Perfect. Everything works. I should also be able to take, because this is sending out 50 pixels worth of data, there's only 8 pixels here. We should be able to plug the end of these in and get, so now we can daisy chain through the first set to the next. And these are bullet style. There's 50 here in this bundle, and we sent 50 channels of data out, or 50 pixels worth of data, which is 150 channels. And you'll see that there's 8 here that are not lit because this took the first set of 8. So this one, the data stops at the last pixel here. If I skip ahead here, or if I take our strip out and plug it in, we'll get those ones lit up now. So now what we need to do is we need to put this in our candy cane. So the solution I came up with is design these little plugs with a hole in them that a zip tie can fit through, and these go inside the end of the candy cane, just a press fit, and they lock in there, and you can barely tell they're in there, especially when they're in our show. So this one's such a good fit, it's hard to get back out. There we go. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our strip and we need to feed it into the candy cane, and we want to make sure that the lighted side is out towards the outer edge. So when I feed it in, I'm just going to make sure that I'm mindful of that. Feed it through here little by little. And when we get to the bend, sometimes you got to kind of shake it a little bit to get it to make that bend out the bottom there. There it goes. We want to give it a little extra so we have some room to work with. So now we have our end out here. So what I came up with to do this, so we put this slit in here. This jacket is really, well, that does us no good. I was going to say the jacket's really stretchy, but obviously I ripped it. So I need another solution. Alright, here's what I came up with. It's not pretty, but it works. Took a piece of heat shrink, just a longer section there, cut it out because there's an LED there, I don't want to obstruct it, and then shrunk it around there. So hopefully with it holding a chip and whatnot, it doesn't have to be super strong, just has to keep it in place. So we're going to pull this, we're going to take and stick our little cap, stick that zip tie through there, and then we're going to feed it into here, and then we're going to fold the zip tie right here. I want it to kind of have a bend. Just going to zip tie that there. And this does a couple things for us. Obviously it keeps the connection, keeps the lights on the end, but putting it on this side of this bracket pulls it away from the tube. If you have these lights right up against it, they show through as individual lights. If they're back a bit, the light kind of floods the whole thing. So there we go. We'll cut that tail off, and then we'll just grab the end here and just carefully pull our lights through. Fit that in. Then I'm going to slide it down, and I'm just going to take a peek through the end. to make sure that we didn't twist or turn the strip as it went through. And then I have the stake has two sides where there's nothing in the way, so the wiring can run right through there. So we're just going to look in through that end, make sure we got our strip where it needs to be as far as how it's turned. And then we can slip these guys right in through the channel. Now it's a little tight, so you want to hold on to the wiring and push it in so you can kind of pull it tight a little bit. Now obviously we don't want to yank it because we'll rip that solder off. There we go. So now we'll make sure, another test, make sure everything is still connected and working. We didn't break anything. There we go. Turn it off. Now obviously we have the little bit where the wire is that you're not going to see, but when it's in, once we get snow, you're not going to notice that anyways. And then with these I can take the rest of them and we can just daisy chain these guys together. And there we go. So now we have our candy canes. To protect the wiring on the end, we're just going to take these, the two ends, and fold them over like such and zip tie them. That way if someone yanks on these, the stake can stay in the ground and it'll just come apart without ripping all our electrical out. So that's how we make candy canes. I also am in the habit of numbering them, just so that if I start having issues with one of them, I'll know which one I need to bring in and repair later. So if I have the pixel goes out on the end or something, I can just take note of which one it is, and when they're all coming in a pile later, I don't have to plug them all in to work on them. So that's that. Only 9 more to go.